Hello everyone. So in this video, I want to talk about, let me read the sentence, letting go of the sense of a separate self. This is a very common thing you hear in a lot of videos or books from spiritual gurus. Letting go of the sense of a separate self. Now, what does this mean? So let's look at the sentence, the way it's constructed. So letting go, so there is something that you're supposed to let go, I guess. So it's kind of an obstacle maybe. And this thing is a sense. So it says what you are supposed to let go is a sense. It's a sensation, it's a feeling. So it doesn't mean that it exists. Yeah, that's what the sentence say. Of a separate self. So the idea that there is a separate self. Now, separate from what? I'm not sure. But why would there be a sense of a separate self? I can of course understand why we would feel that there is a separate self. We of course will have to define what separate means and what self means. But I made a video about this, the idea of identity as an inescapable point of view. So of course, I experience a specific point of view, and each one of you experience another point of view, and those points of view are separate. Or at least they are different. Maybe separate is not the right word, but those points of view are different. So they may share potentially the same reality, but for sure they are not the same. So it's not the same point of view. Those points of view are different. Now, I don't know if that implies that they are separate. I'm not sure why I use the word separate, but for sure those points of view are different. It would be kind of ridiculous to say that we all have the same point of view, because I see from the eyes of this body and each one of you sees from the eyes of their body. So what is this sense of a separate self that we're supposed to let go? Is it the sense of a separate point of view? But why are we supposed to let go that sense of something that makes perfect sense, that is objectively observable? So this is the issue I have with a lot of the teachings of those spiritual gurus. And it's just new stories. So they are teaching you to add new stories. So there is your reality, whatever you perceive, whatever you experience, and they are teaching you to add new stories, to add new stuff in between, let's say, you and reality. So now there is something you should do. You should let go a sense of a separate self. But why? Besides that, we cannot even really understand what self means in that context. Is it point of view? Is it maybe some idea of agency? And how do you actually let go? If it's real, it's real. Can you let go of, let's say, let go of your hands? Can you let go of your body? Can you let go of your head? So, or maybe it's not real. If it's not real, then you just have to understand that it's not real. So you don't have to let go of Santa Claus. You just have to realize that Santa Claus is a story. So are we saying that this idea of separate self is a story? But it doesn't seem a very detailed story. So what does it do, that separate self? What is exactly the story we are trying to drop here? The fact that there is a separation? Well, we don't all have the same point of view. We see reality from a different point of view. So should we now delude ourselves that we all have the same point of view? it doesn't seem to make sense. It just seems to be a story, an extra, a new thing we have to believe, yet another belief to add on top of all the beliefs we have, and not to actually try to remove beliefs that are based on nothing and get some clarity. By removing the stories, we will remove the judgment. The judgment is not removed by forcing ourselves to not judge or forcing ourselves to let go of something or to believe something new. Removing judgment, removing stories is not about believing that we should remove judgment. It's not about belief that we should remove stories. It's not about adding new beliefs. It's about removing the pre-existing beliefs. We remove those beliefs because they are not based on anything. They are conditioning, they are just made up. There is stuff that for some reason, maybe because we heard of it, someone told us about, or we ended up being conditioned, but without experiencing the thing. I'm curious, so those self-help or those spiritual gurus that they say let go of the sense of separate self, did they actually experience this non-separate self, whatever self means? Now, sure, maybe through some, they could induce a state where they have some sort of feeling that maybe they, I don't know, they could feel some feeling of unity, joy, maybe by meditating, maybe by taking some drug, but in some way they will enter some kind of altered state of consciousness, whether through drugs or through some other way to induce that state of consciousness. And sure, this may produce a feeling which is pleasurable, which is good, and that feeling could feel like a feeling of unity or connection or whatever. But I could also take drugs and feel that I'm flying. Does that actually mean that I'm flying? If I feel that I'm flying because I'm high, does that mean that I'm flying? Probably not. So if someone induces some altered state of consciousness and they feel some sense of unity or non-separate self or whatever, does that actually mean it's real, it's true? I mean, maybe. I'm not saying it's not. We don't know. Maybe not. All we know is that through a specific practice, they have induced a specific state that produces a specific feeling. That's what we know. That's what we objectively know. But then once they are conscious, once they are, let's say, not in the induced state, are they really going to give all their money to someone else? Because at the end, if there is no separate self, then every point of view is the same. So ideally, you don't care if someone hit your head with a hammer or they hit someone else's head. You don't really care if your money belongs to you or to someone else because, hey, it's all the same. There is no separation. In general, facts speak louder than words. If someone say they are generous but they never give any money, they are probably not generous. If someone doesn't say they are generous but often give to people, then maybe they are generous. I'm not saying it's good or bad to be generous. It's just an example. So in general, facts are louder than words. So if we all believe we are the same, there is this sort of complete unity or complete lack of separation. If we believe that, then we should just give away all our money because it doesn't make any difference. There is no difference if we have the money or someone has it, someone else has it. We should just give away everything. But no one does that. As far as I know, I don't think any of those gurus, they give away all their money. So they don't really believe in this idea of complete non-separate. What does it even mean? This idea of what exactly is supposed to be non-separate? Because clearly their bank account is separate. Their house is separate. They're not going to let everyone into their house. Their car is separate. They're not going to let everyone drive their car. They're not going to give away their kidneys and their heart and their eyes, and they're not going to give away pieces of their body. So, I mean, it seems in terms of belief, it seems that it's not the same. I don't know if it's separate or not, but I don't know. Of course, separate could mean a lot of things, depends on but it doesn't seem to be the same thing. It seems that there is a difference. So my point of view is different than someone else's point of view, and to some extent, I'm going to care more about my point of view than someone else's point of view. Of course, I may feel sad if someone else is sick, but I still rather that someone else is sick than I'm sick. Of course, I may feel sad if someone else loses money, but I rather that they lose money than I lose money. So what exactly is this story about lack of separate self or letting go the sense of a why exactly do we have to condition ourselves, to hypnotize ourselves, to tell ourselves a story, another story to add on top of all the stories, to become even more conditioned? What has this to do with any ability to understand more, to dig into ourselves, to look into ourselves, to understand more? A sentence like this is just adding further conditioning. It's not helping in any way. It's this idea that is pushed by a lot of spiritual gurus, that you have to practice, that you have to do some effort. Now, of course, you may have to do some effort in terms of understanding, because sometimes, yes, you have to put effort to understand something. But the effort should be a one-off. So it should be, you do the effort to understand, and then once it's understood, it's gone. You don't have to make constant effort. You have to make a certain effort to realize something, to realize that something is false, and to get rid of it. Yes, you have to make some effort for this. But once it's done, it's done. So what does it mean? When you say let go of the sense of separate self, there is no realization, it doesn't help in understanding anything. It's not like Santa Claus that we can explain someone why Santa Claus doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense because A, B, C, D, so oh my God, doesn't make sense, poof, drop, gone, story gone. There is no need to keep putting effort in believing that Santa Claus doesn't exist. It's gone. So whereas here, like, let go of, it's an action, it's something you have to do. Let go of the sense of separate self. So you have to constantly let go. I mean, explain me how come there is no separate self, so I can understand. Because it looks like there is something separate, or at least something different, at least a different point of view. Because I rather that someone else lose their money than I lose my money. And I think that's true for everyone. And those spiritual gurus, they don't seem like they're giving their money away to random people because, hey, at the end it's the same. There is no separate self. Now, sure, you can have a feeling, you can induce a feeling, maybe that some feeling of connection or unity or whatever. But it's just a feeling. I mean, does it mean anything? Does it mean it's true? Again, I can smoke and be high and feel like I'm flying. Does that mean I'm flying? Probably not. I can feel that I understood something. Doesn't mean I actually understood. Very often people, they feel they understand something, then when you ask the right question, you understand they did not understanding. The feeling of understanding is not a guarantee that you actually understood. The feeling of flying is not a guarantee that you're actually flying. You could just be high. So the feeling of unity, while you induce an altered state of consciousness, whether through drugs or meditation or whatever, or try to hypnotize yourself or to convince yourself of some new story, is not a guarantee that is true. There is nothing really that we can discover as true. We can only break apart things that are obviously untrue, that are incoherent, that makes no sense, etc., etc. Enlightenment, or dropping the conditioned mind, which is the same, is about realizing which one are the conditionings. And the conditionings are story we tell ourselves about stuff that we have not experienced. So people talk about Santa Claus, kids talk about Santa Claus, but they have never seen Santa Claus. It's a conditioning because they have never experienced. Now, if kids or people talk about cats, it's different. It's not a condition because they have seen cats. They have touched them, they have pet them, they have fed them. They have seen them grow, and So they have experienced cats. So cat is not a conditioning, it's something that people have experienced. They are talking about something they have experienced. And it's not just an illusion, because many people have experienced it. You don't need to induce a specific state to see a cat. You see a cat all the time if there is a cat. You don't need a specific state to see a cat. But Santa Claus, you never see it. Now maybe it exists, but no one has ever seen it. But why assume that it exists? Let's wait to see it. If we see it, then hey, it exists. But for now, I feel it makes more sense to assume that Santa Claus doesn't exist because I've not seen it. Now, I'm not saying that I positively believe that Santa Claus does not exist as a belief. I just say that I have no reason to believe Santa Claus because I've not seen it. I have no reason to believe that anyone actually believes in no sense of separate self unless they consider that every perspective is identical. So the least they can do is give away everything they have. And that will be just the starting point. Because then it should be that it doesn't make any difference if they are sick of someone else or someone else is sick. It makes no difference. If there is no separation, then it's all the same. But no one behaves like this. At the end of the day, this is just an example. It was one of the lectures, the initial lectures in Coursera of, I forgot the name, is this very famous author. I think the name starts with Y, but I forgot the name, the full name. He wrote the book Homo Sapiens. But before that, he was making some very, very interesting videos on Coursera, which were really amazing and very interesting. And in one of those, he was talking about beliefs, and he was saying that you can see what people actually believe by looking at what they do. And he was saying when the Pope is sick, the Pope goes to the hospital. He doesn't go to the church to pray. So in some way, the Pope himself believes more in science than in prayer, because when he's sick, he goes to the hospital. He doesn't go to pray. So every guru that is talking about no separate self and blah, 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 but are they actually doing what they are saying? Why not give away everything they have? Why do they care about their own health? It should be irrelevant. It's like if there is no separation, everything is the same. As if there is a single point of view or all point of view are the same. But it's not. You rather that someone else feel pain than you feel pain. You rather that someone else lose money than you lose money. This is just logical. It's just something we observe. So why would we force ourselves to believe something else, something that makes no sense? Now, I'm not saying, I don't know, is there a self or not? It depends what is a self. Define a self, and then we can look at if there is a self or not. Define separation, and then we can look at if there is separation or not. The problem with most of those ideas or those sentences or those mottos is that the words are not well defined. So what is a self? We have to define it first. Could be many things. I will argue that if the self is a point of view on reality, a specific point of view, then there is definitely a separate self, because not every point of view is the same. I experience reality from my perspective and not from you guys' perspective. So there is clearly a separation if we're talking about point of view. Now, maybe they're talking about something else, I don't know, but we have to define what is this self and what is then separation. I don't know exactly what separation will mean. Is there a boundary in between? Is there a barrier? Yeah, I've not seen that barrier, but still the point of views are not the same. Now, I don't know if there is a barrier or not, if there is a separation or not, but the points of view are not the same. So should we let go of the ideas that the points of view are not the same, but they are obviously not the same? So should we hypnotize ourselves? Should we keep repeating, there is no separate self, there is no separate self, there is no separate self, until we convince ourselves to believe a new made-up story? That doesn't seem like a good idea, to me at least. So why would we believe? Why would we build a new belief? Why would we build a new assumption that there isn't a sense of separate self? It doesn't really make sense. What is the reason? If you add a new belief, on top of the pre-existing beliefs, you should have a pretty good reason to do it. So either it's extremely logical and obvious, or you have experienced it. But if it seems illogical and you have not experienced it, why would you add a new story? It's like believing it in yet another Santa Claus. Why those gurus, they ask us to believe in new stuff? They make a statement and they say, believe in this, believe in that. But isn't it about truth, whatever that means? I would probably make a video about that and explain why the idea of truth is kind of nonsense also. But why add stuff? Isn't it a much better process to identify the stories we tell ourselves, the beliefs that we have that are based on nothing, and then question them and realize that they make no sense, and then drop them? Once they drop, there is no effort needed anymore. The effort is needed if you still believe in something and you have to force yourself not to believe. Once you realize that something really makes no sense, then that's it. There is no effort.